Testing, testing. That's working good. Armchair interactive. Good. Grab that. Da, 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 da. Upcoming changes, streams. Good. Hey guys, how are you? Hello, hello? Do you hear me? Said I'm silent again? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You can hear me. I tested it. Today, I am updating the starting armies. And the reason I'm updating them is because the AI got a little bit tougher. Have any of you guys tried out the AI army personalities yet? Has anybody tried out the AI army personalities? Haven't yet, but I will. Okay. So the thing is, I think people have noticed there was some. By the way, I also want to address in the last stream, I saw people in the comments complaining that someone said I was being obsessive over prioritizing game design over history. So I want to just talk about why they said that. They said that because I was pushing the idea that the personalities that the AI have stat buffs. So one of the personalities, for example, gets like a charging buff. And I think people misunderstood me in the last stream because the stat buff they get is a minor part of the actual equation for an AI personality. They do change their behaviors. And I think people who have played with the AI personalities have seen that firsthand. That, like, for example, the Gustavian are literally taught through the way I've configured them to fire a single volley at close range and then charge you. That's not a stat buff. That's not gamification. That's literally a tactical difference. I think I didn't really explain this clearly enough, and a lot of people were seemingly upset about the AI changes. But of those people who have played with it, which is now available on the beta, I think people have enjoyed using it. So yeah, I just wanted to address that because it seemed like a lot of people were really upset about it. The second thing I'll say, and I don't want to come across defensive, I'm just kind of explaining my process behind things. As I'm just setting this up. Right now I'm just setting up the images here, and we're going to change up some of the army compositions. But while I'm pasting the images, I just figured I'd reply to some of the critiques or concerns. And yeah, regarding the fixation I have on game design, I think the comment was just saying something like, I tend to be inspired by other games and look for gamified solutions rather than historical. And what's it called? All right, that looks good. What do I want to say? So the thing is, that is partially true, okay? But I think that's fine for the games that I'm trying to make. I will just admit that I'm not really in this to create historical simulators. I'm not really into simulation games. And at the end of the day, everything is comprised of stats, right? So if you want to say, I don't want the game to be based on stats, right? I want it to be based on morale. Like, how willing are these guys to fight? Morale is a stat. Like, you can't make a morale without stats. Now, there's a difference between making a game that's so based on stats that you could have a unit shoot somebody in the back of the head, and then it goes, blocked. My dexterity is so high that I've negated all incoming damage. And as a player, you'd be like, yeah, but I shot you in the back of the head. You were obviously dead. No, I have equipped this mana potion that has negated damage by 85%. Therefore, there's a way you can gamify it so much that it loses its sense of reality, which is obviously a balance you need to have in game design, that you don't want a player to expect a certain result, and then you do something and it's completely the opposite of that because of an artificial stat buff. That all being said, like I was saying before, I am in the business of designing games, and I like games and systems, and I'm not here to reenact certain parts of history. That's why the game is the way it is. That's why it's a roguelike. And a roguelike is not real. It's not a real historical event. There aren't real historical campaigns in our game. So for me, I try to strike a balance. I don't like when things are so gamified that they feel unreal. But I also don't like if you are so tethered to the idea of realism that there's no way to have fun in the game. And that's a big problem. I'm sure you guys have seen on Steam many historical games that look dry, for lack of a better term, that look like it's a reenactment game and it's very technical. And if anything, I will just say a lot of historical games I've seen seem to be lots of stats, big spreadsheets, right? What do they call the new Paradox games? Spreadsheet simulators. And what are spreadsheets comprised of? Those are all numbers and stats, right? So it's a more difficult conversation than just saying that, oh, I'm too obsessed with the stat changes and I'm not looking into real history or something like that. But anyways, I didn't want to come across defensive about it. I literally just don't have anything else to do while I'm pasting these images in, and I just wanted to talk about it because I saw the comment come up a lot, and I was like, you know what, I'll just address it because clearly people feel that way. And on one hand, I will just admit that, you know, this is the way I like to make games, and that's just not going to change. But then on the other hand, I think there was a misunderstanding that when I was putting in the AI personalities, that it would just be a giant artificial stat buff, and that was it. That was all it does. And that's not the case, right? Like I said, anybody here who's tried out the AI personalities has seen that they do have different behavioral changes, right? I think that's true. And I wasn't going to make this update with just doing a stat buff and then call it a day. So, yeah, that's it. I won't exhaust it any further. Do you guys get what I mean? I don't know if I was very clear with what the hell I'm even... what I'm even talking about, but yeah. All right, we're just about done, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the starting compositions that the player can use, and we're gonna change them up a little bit. And the reason we're changing them up is because we added the AI personalities. It has made the AI a little bit tougher. Because they will now, you know, there's one personality they will just suddenly charge you with everything they've got. There's another personality that gives them access to fire by rank. So they just have more firepower because they are using really advanced tactics, right? So the player's army, if you're just bringing a bunch of recruits in and they mass charge you, you kind of just get routed and destroyed. So I wanted to look at our compositions. Gosh, this looks intimidating. And maybe do a very light sprinkle of just improving one unit here and there to just bring them up a little bit. At the same time, another thing we're going to do today on my agenda is that we are going to, you can see here, in patch notes, will I detail what was changed? I will, Taffer, that's right. By the way, just to respond to anybody, are Highlanders better at melee than shooting? Yes, they are, Jack. Guten Abend, die Herrschaften. What is Herrschaften? The Sir something? I don't know what the hell. Your lordship? Is that what it means? Okay. He said good evening or something. Literally just changed border troops. OH, what do you mean you changed border troops? About what? What happens when a newbie stumbles upon Caroleon of Doom and despair? I blacked out for a second. Yeah, I think C-Stan, that is why I want to update the player army compositions to be a little bit stronger, so you don't get mauled at the very beginning. Now, at the same time, so it's kind of like a domino effect. There's a little bit of a chain reaction, right? Because the AI personalities means that the difficulty has gone up because the AI is more dynamic now, right? They're less predictable. They might do things that will ruin your strategy. So they're tougher, right? So my solution is just to update the starting compositions to be a little bit stronger and match that. Because it's mainly a problem in the early game. If early game you get charged down, all you have are the shittiest recruits in the game, that's pretty rough. But if we buff the player too much, now once you overcome that initial challenge, this will let you snowball faster. So now we've got a little bit of the snowballing problem. So then I just want to take the brigade and item slots and make them very slightly more expensive. Because if you're starting with like an extra grenadier now, I don't want you to be able to open up that extra brigade slot and item slots, and then you just start flying through the game a little bit quicker. So very slight change to brigade and item slots. Very slight change to the updating or the starting compositions. And then we have the AI personalities that are making it a little tougher. That to me is like my focus for this update to kind of shake up the balance a little bit. Yeah. Does that sound fair? I want to start on France because France has got an interesting starting composition here I want to talk about. And this starting composition is Royal Recruit, Royal Recruit, Royal Recruit, and Provincial Cav. So this unit is bad, that unit's bad, that unit's bad, that unit is bad. And at the same time, this says extra infantry melee per regiment. So this is trying to get you to play into like a really powerful infantry army. But these guys are really bad. And that's fine. The player will eventually upgrade these guys. But something that Thomas, the lead developer, and I were talking about today was that with some compositions, for example, the Hungarians, I feel like these Hungarians are pretty good because it wants to show your light cavalry charge is very high, right? And it starts you with 2 good hussars. So you get a little taste of how good your army can be when you play into light cavalry. With the French, for example, here, it's going to give you extra melee per regiment in your army, so we want to give the player a lot of units, but these guys are so bad at everything that really the only person you notice that melee buff on is like Irish Fusiliers, and that's pretty much it. So I'm thinking here it might be as simple as taking this guy and changing him out to like a Royal Grenadier. So let me go in and actually take a picture of something. There. Add regiment Royal Grenadier. And then we can just slap it on. So I was thinking maybe we just add one in like that. And that is it. Nothing too much, nothing too extreme. And I will edit this so we can use it for later as well. In fact, we'll just make it a box like this. And then we can edit that box for anything we need to, anytime we switch out the units, so we can kind of see an overview of what's changing. Sorry, one sec. This will be on a separate layer. In fact, this guy can just go on that layer. Why are Chasseurs Britanniques for the Minden Rose achievements? Oh, just because there aren't enough units to make every single achievement linked to a certain type of unit. So in some cases, you just get a kind of a random unit that doesn't always it's not always associated with the challenge. Otherwise, I'd have to custom design every renowned unit around an achievement, and that can be a little tough to do. But yeah, how do you guys feel about this? The Rio Grenadier there. And just leave it at that. They still get their cavalry, Irish Fusilier. I know in OH's mod, he also changed one of these units out. I think he changed out the Irish for an artillery piece, for a battalion artillery, which would give you kind of an initial taste for France, where because none of their comps have artillery, right? It would get you a slight taste for France to have that combined arms, where you've got the cav, you've got your infantry, you've got some artillery. So it's possible to do that. In fact, I want to darken these a little so we can see what the change there. See if it's darkened, we can actually see what the changes are as we make them. You also give them a Fusilier instead of a recruit. I think that's not necessary, OH. I think that's maybe going a little too far. I think the Royal Grenadier is a good idea because it's cool that it matches the infantry melee, and he makes for a good leader of this brigade. Winter Jaeger, if you don't hear me, well, I can't talk to him. He's probably, can someone tell him he's probably muted the stream because everybody else can hear me. So. But yeah, I think the only thing I might be open to is giving them like a artillery unit, possibly. Maybe replace a royal recruit with an artillery. I could do, I mean, I like that they get a grenadier here because, especially because he's a militia grenadier, because they get the infantry melee buff. So I don't want to change it instead so that this is a artillery unit, because I like that. I could change one of the ones at the end, like this guy could be an artillery potentially. But yeah, I think this is a good change at least, like a slight buff for them. But I could give them one artillery piece if we wanted to. We're taking a really, really long time though, so I'm gonna have to just like I'm gonna have to just use my own opinions and kind of fly through. And if you guys can raise red flags if you notice a problem. So I'm actually gonna write a note for myself and say, do we want artillery? Someone says maybe they could have more starting items. They could receive like a cannon, so you want to get an artillery piece in order to equip the cannon. Yeah. That's not a bad idea. I like the idea of having a cannon in the inventory, so you have to work up to it, or you can just sell it. Yeah. Let's move on to the next one. This cavalry sucks. Voluntaries Fusilier, German Fusilier. I don't mind this. I like the Chasseur in the front because it's a light infantry thing. And this guy. I think the cavalry here should be upgraded to either a Hussar or a Dragoon. Probably a Hussar because we have heavy cavalry here. And we have light... that's light cavalry there. It could go either way. A Hussar is light, though, and if this is the light corps, we probably want to do a light cavalry, right? So let's do add regiment Hussar, and we probably do that. And make this composition a little more fun. Yeah, I don't think it should be a Dragoon. The Dragoons look cooler. The Dragoon looks cooler, but I don't think we have too many Hussars. Do we have too many Hussars? Do we actually? We have one Hussar here, two Hussars there. For Prussia, do they have a... I mean, I could switch out the Prussian Freikorps Hussar for a Freikorps Dragoon instead. I feel like a light corps with a light cavalry makes sense, and for the Freikorps, we can give them a Dragoon instead. I'll leave a note here and say that maybe they should get a Voluntaries Dragoon instead. I don't know, but it doesn't really make sense why they're a light corps getting heavy units, because they look cooler. I don't really like that. To me, the play style, you have to define kind of a play style for them, and I think the light unit makes more sense there. With the King's Household, they get I mean, these guys just kick ass at the start, right? I don't really think there's anything. One thing we could do, which is overpowered as hell, which I don't think they need, is that you can make them start with one Royal Cavalry and a Gendarmerie. But I really don't think that is necessary. So I don't know if they need any changes on the king's household. These 3 units are really solid at the start. I think this is good how it is. I think they're fine the way I see them. Those are my 2 ideas for changes there. Let's jump over to Prussia, because we were talking about maybe changing their Freikorps, right? One thing with the Cantonist levies that I liked that OH did is he gave them a land militia unit. However, I'm on the fence about that because they are called the Cantonist levies, and you do get 2 Cantonists, and you can turn them into anything you want, which I do like that you can do that. But I think I like the idea of switching one of these out for a better unit. We could make it an artillery unit so that you get, if you're a new player playing the new composite or the base level composition, you get a little bit of everything. You get like an artillery piece, a cavalry, and then 2 infantry for the front line. So you'd get a little bit of everything, especially because there's no Prussian with starting artillery. So it could be the case that we do that, or we make it land milits. And if it's land milits, it's just a little bit better. It's just a little bit better that way. Alex, you're saying to do renowned units at the start. I don't know. I think the issue with that is if you don't have the renowned unit unlocked, I think that's... if you don't have the renowned unit unlocked, then... Yeah, their thing is their artillery sucks. Yeah, I do see that. I don't mind the Lamelitz start. Or make the Prussian Musketeer a veteran. What do you think about that? Just so you have a really solid starting unit. This guy could, like, take on a lot on his own. And then he helps train up your younger recruits. I feel like that could be kind of cool. Let me see what the veteran musketeer looks like. Because I do like keeping the 2 Cantonists because they're called the Cantonist recruits. And as a new player, you get a chance to kind of customize them. And then this guy can be like their leader because he's a veteran of the First Silesian War. And this way, early game, if you get rushed down, like, he's pretty strong. Yeah, I like the veteran. And then these guys are your options. Yeah. And just for anybody who's joining us as to, like, why we're making these changes, it's because the new AI personalities are pretty strong. And it's mainly a problem at the start of the game because some of them can be really defensive and hard to root out because they get maybe a defensive bonus. And some of them are really aggressive and will charge you pretty much in the opening start of the battle. So if you get bogged down in a mass enemy charge, that can be really dangerous. So I just want to buff up the compositions just a little bit more, especially because there's still also, even before this update, we have players who sometimes leave a review saying like, oh, I'm just stuck at the start. I'm just losing those first opening battles and I can't get the ball rolling. And then once people do get the ball rolling, the game almost becomes too easy. But it's really just the very, very start that can sometimes be a bit of a challenge for people. And so now that the AI personalities are even better, I think I want to make sure that players are going to be okay and they don't get bodied right as soon as the game begins. Especially now, too, if you put the game on the hardest difficulty and the enemy's getting duplicate units that are higher combat effectiveness and they mass charge you, that can be really dangerous. It could almost be too frustrating to deal with. Okay, we go to the Freikorps, and they have Jaegers, they have Musketeers. What do we want to do for the Freikorps here? I do like the theme, by the way, of going 4, 3, 2, so the army is like shrinking and becoming more professional. So I like the 3-unit idea here. But we can upgrade these units, I think. And luckily we have more units. Like the Prussians have veteran Jaegers. So we have veteran as options. I'm just writing our options. We have veteran Jaegers. We have Freikorps Grenadiers. We have Freikorps veteran Musketeers. We have Freikorps veteran Hussars. And then we have Freikorps Dragoons. So we actually have a lot of great options to swap one of these units out for an upgrade. I think no one should start out with maxed out units. I agree with the plural, Alex. Not maxed out units, but I don't mind if there's one unit maxed out. Because sometimes it's fun to have one OP unit that you can kind of get a taste for of like, oh, that's my potential. And then everybody else should kind of be working their way up. And there's exceptions to that, like the double grenadier start for the old corps, but that's fine because it's kind of the last composition you get. So by the time you get this, you've played the game so much. But the initial starting armies should have a sense of progression, I think. These are more important to have the most progression in. So yeah, we could upgrade the Jaegers or swap out the Cav. We talked about maybe swapping the Cav out in order to set the Hussars apart, but yeah. We could just give the Light Corps a Dragoon. Let me see how he looks. Because the Light Dragoon that the French get, or the Voluntary Dragoon, is pretty cool looking. Let me regenerate him. There. So just to go back to this, I think one or the other the French should get. Let me see what it looks like in the tree as well. So if you had this, he's already maxed out. Voluntaries Dragoons are basically light Dragoons. Yeah, their stats are based around that. Like you can see they have very high accuracy at 30. Almost the same as the... Actually, the Dragoons have 35. So the Dragoons have better accuracy for shooting. And then compare that to like Gentleman Cav at like 10. Or Gendarmerie at 5. So I could go either way. What do you guys think for the Light Corps? Why are they heavy cav anyway? That is true. They don't have to be heavy cavalry if I didn't want them to be. Let me see. Let me see what the British have. The British have Dragoons that are heavy cavalry and light Dragoons designated as light cavalry. I could redesignate the French Dragoon as a light cavalry. Like, we could make that light cavalry there. How about we... OH, would you be able to do me a favor? If we did that, I think that's not a bad idea. If we change that, do you want to go and adjust the stats for me? And then send me the updated stats? Could you do that for me? I actually don't know if we even really need to update many stats. We could keep them identical, but you could just take a look and see if we want to edit anything for them. Yeah, but yeah, let me know if you do want to just mess around with like one or two of these numbers, and then I'll make this a light cav. Thank you. And then we will give them a Dragoon. This way they have like a light Dragoon who looks really cool with the helmet. And this way we're not spamming Hussars for every composition. And then now we go back up to... Now we go back up to the Prussians, and why don't we just make this a veteran Hussar? Like that. Or do you guys want to keep the Hussar the same and do a veteran Jaeger? Or both, but I think that might be a little too much. I think that goes back to what Alex was saying, where both units would be kind of at the end of their upgrade tree, and that might be a little disappointing because there'd be a lack of a feeling of progression that way. So we could just keep the Hussars the same and do a veteran Jaeger. Let me see what they look like as well. But I think one veteran unit would be nice for the Freikorps, because the Freikorps have also been seen as pretty weak. I don't think people really even enjoy playing them too much. So giving them one like badass unit would be kind of fun. I'll do a poll. I'll let you guys choose. Do you want the veteran Jaeger or veteran Hussar? They look like Lenoble Jaegers. Yeah, that's who they're based on, actually. Roki would demolish people, yeah. The thing with Roki, I think we just have to ignore him in the Discord, because If you try to if you try to balance the game after Roki, I think you are going to hurt 99% of the player base, because that dude uses so many exploits that there's never going to be a way that you're going to balance it for him. Is better officer starter trait an option? It could, but I feel like they're going to be really vulnerable to the early game if they get charged down. You sent me the Google Sheet. Thank you. I will update these stats now. I'll also grab the changelog. And do... that. There we go. And you said you changed... I'll just copy and paste both of them. So yeah, it looks like you changed both units just to distinguish them a bit more. Good. Okay. Looks good. One regiment challenge is the only thing stopping them. Yeah. How many hours of sleep did you get? I got a lot of sleep, actually. I got too much sleep. Veteran Jaeger. Okay, let's go Veteran Jaeger. It's a little bit of a contender now versus the people who go Grenzer with the Veteran Jaeger. Let's do that. Now you've got an alternative light kind of core that you can play into. Okay, and then we look at the old core, and I don't think I would change anything here. Because the old core is pretty... I have not really played with them much. Do you guys think the old core needs any updating? Even if they got charged down, I feel like they're going to hold their own. I feel like the double Grenadier start is pretty damn effective as it is. Yeah, plus they get the combat effectiveness. I don't think they need any changes. I think they're fine. Veteran Grenadier is the only viable change. Could you imagine them starting with one Veteran Grenadier, though? I don't... It would be funny, but I think they're powerful, so I think they don't need it. I'm just worried about a player starting and getting bodied by, like, a Gustavian general who's going to mass charge them or something. So we just need to, like... give them a little firepower, or give them a little bit more resilience, or give them a sturdier unit, you know, just like sprinkling the different army comps a little bit with just a bit more resilience to withstand that early game pressure that they're going to now face. Because that early game pressure could end your run right away. So that's what we're trying to address at the moment. Okay. We have the Crownland Corps here. They get a Fusilier, double recruits, and an artillery. I would not mind just giving them a cav unit, which is, I think, what OH does. Yeah, I absolutely think they should just get one cav unit to replace a recruit. So they get a little combined arms. Let me see what kind of cavalry we could give them. That's just what my gut says, because the artillery is going to be weak, the recruits are weak, and the Fusilier is average. So if you get charged down, you just lose, right? There's, like, nothing to hold your... line. You do start with the 2nd Brigade, which is a nice advantage. That artillery is really strong. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I gave them basic Chevalier, but they could get a Dragoon to match. I don't like them matching. I like them being asymmetric. But let me just take a look at their... Artie is nice, but no canister. I could give them an extra item. I could give them canister instead of an extra unit. They could get a Netherlander Fusilier, but that's a little niche. They could get a Jaeger, but the 2nd composition really leans into that already. They could get a Chevalier, which look pretty cool. Give them an Austrian cav instead of a Hungarian hussar. I agree. The artillery gets an upgrade gun and a couple items for even more buffs. Yeah, they get the bronze gun with the elevation screws that play into your artillery accuracy and range, and then you can reload it a few seconds faster and reduce the ammo consumption and level it up faster. Then they have buck and ball, which you can give to the infantry, and then you can sell off the cannon. And they have combat effectiveness 10%, which is very good for the trait. So yeah, whether it's an item or a unit upgrade, what's some little way that we could give them a very slight buff so they don't get pushed a little too hard early game? Like for the Prussians, we look at this, they get a veteran and a dragoon, and then a couple shitties. The Austrians have an artillery and a fusilier and a couple shitty units. I think them having all infantry helps the artillery, which is the main strength of the composition. That's true. Let me see if I did upgrade the artillery, what it could. I would give them veteran artillery. That'd be kind of crazy if they started with that, you know? Maybe a compromise could be that they start with Netherlander artillery, which isn't as good as the veteran, right? Let's see, 30, 20, 40, 30, 200 versus 150. So I could give them like a Netherlander field artillery instead of a regular field. That's kind of a compromise. The difference is they would gain a little bit extra manpower and then lose some accuracy. I could give them canister shot, though. But look at the Netherlander. It's not even that much better. You just drop some accuracy and you gain regiment size. So you're just going to be able to fire more shots off and saturate an area, which helps play into the accuracy, because if you've got more accuracy and more guns, you should be able to knock out an enemy better. Thing is, you don't think of Netherlander units when thinking of Austria. Yeah. It is part of their empire, though. The empire is diverse. Give them one more cannon. Grenadier, their Crownland aren't the best. I could give them a starting Grenadier, but that feels a little strong. I don't know. That's a tough one, isn't it? A lot of people are saying canister as an option, which I think could be helpful. Like if you got charged down, you could just load canister. That would be helpful. Yeah, we've got a couple options here. I would say the options are canister at the start, or change a Crownland to Chevaux, or upgrade the Fusilier to a veteran, or upgrade the Fusilier to a Grenadier. I don't like doing that, though, because the Prussians have the veterans, so I don't like that at the start. So then the only other thing I would think of is change a recruit to a Fusilier. Those are my three options. That they get a good canister shot, or that this is a Chevaux Léger, or that this is a Fusilier. Those are my only thoughts. But yeah, if you got attack column charged, these guys will die. The Fusilier is very average, so he'll just hold and probably die. And then the field artillery is not going to have a long enough time to get enough shots off, and it's going to get overrun. So I would say the very aggressive AI would destroy this early game before you have a chance to build it out. I like the recruit to Fusilier. Let me do a poll. Before I put the poll down, I'm going to throw a few caveats out. Let me just say some things, which you could disagree with, by the way. But first of all, there's not enough item slots to even equip the canister, if you see here. So you would have to unequip an item and just let it sit around, or give, I guess, the Commissar to the Fusilier, which is not a bad thing, but I'm just letting you know. Or the player could just buy the slot right away. I mean, that's also very possible, right? The other thing is the Chevaux Leger. I was playing OH's mod, and OH changed a lot of the army compositions to come with an artillery and a cavalry and infantry, so you have combined arms at the very start. And I did enjoy the early game having the variety. Like one example, and I don't know if it's very necessarily vanilla friendly, so I don't think we have to go this route. It could just be for his mod, and if you want to play his mod, you can play that way. And if you want to play the vanilla game, we do it differently. But I'll show you a preview of what his mod looks like. And I did just enjoy being able to have a lot of tools at first. But then to counter that, what we did is what he's got in his mod, and what something I was going to do already, is that everything's a little more expensive. So you progress a little slower, but you start with a more fun composition, a more diverse composition. So you can see here what was I going to mention? France. With France, he's got an artillery, a cavalry, and infantry. And you immediately get to like pin down an enemy with cavalry, run back, fire at it with artillery, and then charge someone with your grenadier. But look at that, the brigade cost discount is much less than it is in the vanilla game. And if you don't have the discount, I'll show you what it looks like when you go in. You can see what the new brigade cost is in his mod, which that was something I was going to do. And part of the reason why OH made this mod was to test out some of those theories and refine them. And this way we can test them. And I actually like the results here. Look at this. The first brigade, just to get the second brigade slot, is 500. So you're hanging out with this army a little bit longer than you are in the vanilla game, which I prefer because it extends the early game feel a little bit further. And then what he does, which I'm not going to do in this update, but I am going to do in the next update, is to make the enemy AI armies a little smaller, because it's harder for you to expand as well. So both you and the AI are a little smaller. And this way that those smaller to medium-sized battles are a little bit more frequent in Acts 1 and 2 before they get big. Because I think the big battles are fun, but if you give the big battles too early and you have non-stop big battles over and over and over and over again, they get fatiguing, they get tiring, right? They feel less meaningful. So I think if you extend this early game feel just a little bit longer, in my opinion, it does help with the pacing. That's kind of a goal of mine. But I'm not going to be able to achieve that goal for a few different updates. We're going to have to build up to it. Because I don't want to do it all at once. If I do it all at once, it's going to be a big shock to the game. So I want to do it in stages. And then by the time we're done, we're done. But yeah, you can see for Russia, he's got a starting grenadier with a dragoon. For Austria, he added the Chevaux Leger with the artillery, so they can the artillery or the cav can sort of protect the guns. What else did you change? You added the veteran grenadier. That one I disagree with, but again, it's just a mod, so you're just having fun with that. That's fine. The Don Cossack I agree with, but we'll get to that later. And you've got the Volunteers Dragoon, which I think we changed as well. So we've got a few things that we did match with what you've got. Okay. Put that back. And I'll go back to the chat. Sorry, I've not read in a while. Oh. Why are there 3 HREs? It's because we're testing testing mods and adding room for Sweden and just seeing what the nation flags look like. Act 2 patrol feels like just another Act 1 field army. Yeah, which is a bit tiresome. Yeah, I agree. So I want to kind of slow things down a little bit. I also want to reform Act 3 to be a little bit faster and not drag as long. So if Act 1 and 2 can feel a little bit slower in terms of not having giant battles constantly, like slow it down a bit. And then Act 3, we can make it quick and meaningful and big, huge battles that are tough and then not overstay its welcome. That's kind of my goal. Anyways, not to drag this out any longer, but for Austria, what are you guys thinking for the upgrade? Either changing a Crownland to a Fusilier, adding an extra canister at the start, or changing one of the Crownlanders to a Chevaux Leger. Those are kind of our options. What are you thinking? You guys are leaning... Okay, more votes are coming in. Okay, while you guys vote, I'm going to start looking ahead. Does anyone have any opinions? I know the border troops are really, really strong. But they can be very weak at the start. I wonder if we should do it. I wonder if we should do two changes. I wonder if one change should be reduce the range bonus they get, but make the starting units a little stronger so that they don't scale quite as high, but they also don't start quite as weak. Because right now they start very weak and then they just become incredibly powerful. Whereas if we could start them a little bit stronger and then they become somewhat powerful, that's maybe a bit better. Okay, most people are leaning on the Chevau Léger to replace a recruit. Okay, we'll try it out. You made the Grenadiers light infantry. See, the thing I disagree with that is, like, if everyone's light infantry, including your Grenadiers, if you just get charged, you're dead. So there's just nothing to hold the line. So I'm a little bit worried about that idea. I don't necessarily know what that... Unless I'm misunderstanding. Do you want to explain further? Like, do they just get charged down? They just die? Like, I wouldn't want that to happen. So how do you remedy that? If you're making their Grenadiers light. For Austria... a Chevau Léger. There. And he's got, like, no starting items or anything. You could actually give him the buck and ball. That would actually be useful to give to him. And then someone says, I think border troops should have way bigger terrain or barricade defense. Aren't light infantry... They're better melee fighters. Even when they're caught in a charge, they can fend them off. You can react and form them into line. That's true, yeah. We could make one of the recruits a Grenzer Grenadier and change the Grenzer Grenadier to be light infantry and make that kind of a unique part of their start. And then I could follow that up by reducing the range bonus they get down to 25%. So that they have a stronger start with, like, a sturdy Grenadier unit, but they don't scale quite as crazily, where they have basically modern sniper rifles by the end of the game. I don't want to hurt the fun too much. I don't mind bending history a little bit if it's fun, but the 30% probably feels like it scales a little bit too high in the late game to be too powerful. But yeah, we could see here. I could make someone a veteran... They would have a sharpshooter, Grenadier. I don't know. What do you guys think about the starting comp there? Yeah, I would just change this because it's just a little bit too high, I think. So make that 25% instead. And then... for the units, what do you guys think here? I could go either way. I don't really play Grenzers a lot. What would be useful primarily for the early game to not get bodied by charges? Would you want... I think the recruit's got to go, right? I think he's got to be upgraded so you have 3 more reliable units. Having only 3 units, but one of them is a recruit, is really lame. That sucks. Like, imagine the Freikorps and one of these guys was a Freikorps recruit. They've got a Hussar, a veteran, and a Musketeer. Meanwhile, you go here and you've got a fucking recruit. So I think that guy's got to go. But yeah, we could make him a Grenadier. Or we could make him a Grenzer veteran. Or even just upgrade this guy to a veteran, but then we would have to leave him as a recruit. I don't know. Do you guys like the Grenadier idea? I think that wouldn't be bad. It'd help compensate nicely for the lower range buff. Because people are going to be pissed off that I debuffed the range buff. But if they're starting with Grenadiers, it helps to compensate for that and make the early game less painful. It also means there's at least one Austrian starting comp that has a Grenadier unit in it, which currently they don't have, which is interesting. So I'd probably move that guy there. If the Grenadiers have open order. Yeah, we can do that. We can make that change. OH, do you want to just DM me Is it in your sheet that you have that I can just make the Grenzer Grenadier a light infantry and then copy the stats over? Is that already done? I'll change it real quick. Okay, cool. And then we get to the Hungarian Vanguard. I think these guys are pretty fine the way they are. I don't really see a need to change them. They've got 2 Hussars, which are strong, and 2 recruits. I mean, maybe a recruit could get upgraded or a Hussar could get upgraded. One or the other. But they get 4 units. The Hussars are very good. The recruits suck. The recruits are really, really bad. Because they have less recruit veterancy gain, plus less recruit accuracy. So these guys are horrible, but these guys are very good. Do you guys have any thoughts on this at all? And again, the purpose of the changes is just to make the very start of the game not... make it so you don't get run over at the start with the AI personalities. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything unique we could do. Let me buy one of their units and see if there's anything in their unit tree that looks cool to give them. Either he's a Grenadier or a Veteran Fusilier. Or just a regular Fusilier. I could make them just regular Fusiliers. I feel like a Veteran Hussar... I wouldn't be opposed to one of them being a Veteran Hussar. But I don't know if they need that level of power because they're already getting the charge buff from the... Look, they already get the light cavalry charge buff, so I feel like they don't need that. So one of these guys could get upgraded if we wanted to. All right, cool. Let me open your sheet and see what we've got changed here. All right, and you said you change them to light infantry, increase the vet cost, and reduce the veteran fusilier cost down to 4. Okay. I'm with you. Do we want to adjust their pricing at all? Do we want to adjust the pricing of the Grenzer Grenadier, or is it fine how it is? Yeah, I agree with the veterancy cost change, though. Adjusted in the sheet. Okay, what did you adjust the... I'll just copy and paste it over. I see you made them just a little more expensive, right? Yeah. Did you ever adjust the prices for the renowned units and the value? Because the... Okay, yeah, so one thing I would look at, OH, is your prices and values of the renowned units are still tethered to the original templated units that we changed. And I bet the weights are also the same, probably suffer the same problem. So do you want to look at those and then just do a sweep? It might take a little while, but you could do a sweep and change stuff if you want to. I don't know, but it's something to think about if we're changing them. Because I know we changed the renowned units already. With the other people, or with the other question, what were we saying with the Hungarians? Did we want to change anything here? I feel like giving him a Grenadier isn't necessary. But I could make one of the recruits a line infantry. So I'll put a poll. An infantry item. I'll do a poll. Let's see. Or... There. So you got the 2 options. Like, if we gave them an item, we could give them, like, a bayonet or something, since the infantry has bad accuracy, in order for them to actually grind out, like, some melee fights. So I could see giving them either like a nice bayonet or just making one of them a line infantry. The one issue is if you make him a line infantry, it blocks the player out of eventually turning that guy into a hussar instead. But that's not horrible. So it's yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, I guess I forgot to also put in the poll, we could just leave them as they are. But you know what? Even if we did a bayonet, that wouldn't be the end of the world. It would just give them a little bit of an edge early on, so they can defend themselves primarily. Because if they get charged down, just break, then that could be rough. All right, most people say to give an item. Let's just give them an item then. And also, I probably for this update would like to try out. I'm probably not going to change the pacing all too much to the combat, but I do want to update. I like the changes you did to the melee weapons and the guns, that they're less extreme. So I think that's something I want to do, and it does make it makes the fights last a little longer. I would be open to putting in those melee changes to test them out, because I played with them and I gave you the only criticism I had, which was that the charge momentum didn't go down slow enough. But if you implemented that, then you can kind of give me a list of the changes that you did, and I can incorporate those for this update. The plan is to have a continuous beta for the rest of this whole week, and then have the update go live on the 3rd, on this Friday. So we actually have a decent amount of time. So we could do the weapon rebalances to make the musket combat a little slower, and then just do the core data changes of the melee to make the melee combat a little slower. And yeah, I can change it all for you. I don't have access. I would rather you just give me a list of what to change, and I would do it myself, because I might not take 100% of what you changed. I might look at some of the things and find little compromises, because I think when you change the melee, it was like 5% too slow for my taste. There's a couple little things I'd probably just slightly tinker with. So if you could just do that, that I think would be easier, if that's all right with you. But yeah, let's take a look at a bayonet. Who already gets a bayonet as an army? Does anybody... The subsidy troops get a heavy bayonet. Does anyone get like a light bayonet? They just get a regular one over there. Let's give these guys probably a good quality light bayonet then. Is there anything else infantry gets from melee that would be useful? They have an axe. I could upgrade the axe and give them a medium quality bayonet on top of that. So we could say... Why don't we give them a good quality light bayonet and then upgrade the axe to be good, so you can give one good melee item to each of your infantry. And I think that should be nice. And upgrading the axe also improves their cover on top of that, so it'll make them more resilient. I think that makes Hungary, it brings them up to the level that we want them. Who else did we do? We did Russia and France and stuff. Oh, we also do have to change France's brigade cost, because we're making the brigades more expensive. So this is going to be disproportionately good. So I'm going to note to self to update, but need to do the math to compare against Britain and likely update Britain's buff too. But we'll come back to that. I want to get the rest of the compositions done first. I don't want to like jump around too much, because we're on a roll right now. Prussia's done, Austria's done, France is done. We've got Russia and HRE and Britain. Let's start from the top. Let's do Britain next, Russia, then HRE, okay? So we've got Britain here. Now Britain's got British foot, which is good, Highland foot, which is good, light dragoons who are good, an officer who's good, excellent items, which are good. What would they need? Do they need anything really at all? I don't really see too much room for needing something better. I don't think they need to be changed at all, yeah. They're already fine. This is basically what I had wanted to do with everyone else, and they already got it early. Like, they already got all the good unit upgrades in the same way that, like, what we did to the Freikorps, where we gave them, like, a veteran unit, and they've got their Hussar and Musketeers. That's essentially what Britain's already got. Like, they've got a great unit, and another great unit, and another great unit. So they're good. So I think we can keep them there. They're fine. These guys are fine. I'll do a yellow check mark because it means I do have to edit something. Green means they're already done. We don't have to change it. And they're already done too. Good. And now we get to Hanover. I feel like Hanover's starting units are maybe a little boring. Lamellits, Lamellits, Lamellits. The Cav is fine. Let me add a subsidy unit and then see what we could do, because I feel like they look a little boring, to be honest. So we actually have a lot of options, which is nice. They could get a Musketeer as a leading unit. Yeah, like a Hanoverian Foot as a leading unit. I would be very open to that. I do understand why I gave them a lot of Lamellits, because they get the second brigade opened up, and Britain's big debuff is that your brigades cost more, so they're bypassing part of the malice, which is very advantageous. And I do understand that we don't want to make him too powerful, so I feel like just having one starting Hanoverian Musketeer, Hanoverian Cavalry, and then some Lamellits would be nice. I don't want to give them artillery because I think that composition's already done with Saxony. Artillery, not really. I mean, they only have 3 units there. You could just not give them a second brigade. I could consolidate them, but I like the idea that it makes them unique. I wouldn't mind just making one of these guys a Musketeer, and that's it, and just call it a day at that. I feel like that's good enough. And it makes them more distinctly Hanoverian because the Lamellits aren't even Hanoverians. Yeah, I wouldn't remove the cavalry because I like that they have the command radius, and the cavalry is easier to move around to do that. There. So I will mark this off next. And then we have the subsidy troops. Now, one interesting change that OH did that is very interesting to me here is he replaced the Hessian Grenadier with a Brunswick Grenadier. So he basically went like this. He did a Brunswick Grenadier and then did a Hessian Musketeer and then left the subsidy recruit. And I think the reason he did that is because the Brunswick Grenadier can't go, or the Brunswick Musketeer can only go to a Grenadier, but a Musketeer can go either direction, so you give the player more opportunity to go either way. Whereas if you start with a Hessian Grenadier and a Brunswick Musketeer, both of them end up turning into Grenadiers. Now that could also be kind of fun, but yeah, I don't know. I replaced the recruit with a Jaeger as well. Yeah, subsidy Jaeger could be nice. Because the Brits don't have any light infantry anywhere. So like this could look nice. What do you guys think of that? You get a light infantry because you don't have any options for any of the comps. You get the Hessian Musketeer, so you can build him either way. And then you get a Brunswick Grenadier, since that's maxed out and swaps out the Hessian Grenadier. I think this looks good to me. This is a nice, like, reform. And it makes them a little more powerful. It's also cool to have a composition that starts with a Grenadier plus a Jaeger. I guess you could say we kind of did that over here with a Sharpshooter and a Grenadier. So we're kind of copying that composition a little bit. Because look, this is Grenadier, Sharpshooter, Skirmisher. And I guess we have Grenadier, Skirmisher, regular line. So it's a little bit samey. But I think the compositions play very differently though, right? So it's not a huge concern from the way I see it. I think they're still different enough. Yeah. Okay, good. So let's make the change. Yeah, the Grenzer build is all open order based, so I think this is still very different. I just want to make sure with you guys if you thought it was too similar. You need to change Hessian manpower. Somewhere down the line you reduced them to 1,200 when they were 1,400 originally. I think it's because I want the British to play smaller, to have smaller units. And I only wanted the Hanoverians to feel large, which is why... That's also why the Hanoverians are the only one with 2 brigades, and the Hanoverians are also the only ones with 1,400 men. The Hessians, Brunswicks, and English have 1,200 because they're smaller, and Hesse as a state has a smaller population. So I wanted Hanover to feel like the large army, and I wanted the Hessians to feel more small and specialized, and same thing with the English. But you have a German flavor of that and an English flavor of that. When the Hessians were 1,400 men and the Hanoverians were 1,400 men, it felt like they were maybe a little too similar. So that's the reason why I did that. Check the stats between Brunswick and Hessian Grenadiers. Let me see. It's minimal. But they're missing 200 men. No, they have the same amount of men. They have slightly worse charge, but better reload, and better stamina, but worse morale, and different, and faster speed. So they're a faster version of the Hessians, with lower morale, and lower charge. I mean, that's fine. If anybody has suggestions, we can change it later, but yeah. Uh-oh, did I break the game? Okay. Oh, I could have just done this. There we go. There. And then their items and stuff are fine, and their bonus is also fine. I could see the item slot cost being a little too powerful, because the item slot costs are going to go up in price a little bit. So maybe that'll have to be changed, but we'll come back to it. Would it be possible to have new Steam achievements? I've thought about that. I've thought about it. Puzzle. Unfortunately, we won't update the pathfinding, but they will be updated for the next game. So our next game, it will have... it's actually already been done. We did some technical work on that, and we got some pathfinding. But this game, from a technical perspective, is finished. So you're not going to see changes there. And if that's a turnoff for you, then I wouldn't recommend it. There's games like Napoleon or Empire Total War that have pathfinding around buildings. I mean, it's not very good pathfinding, but if you're looking for immersion, I'd probably go with those games, or like Shogun 2 or something. But this one's just not going to have that, unfortunately. Okay, so these are all done, and the Ultimate General games did it fine. That's not true, Puzzle. In Ultimate General, you walk through rivers, you walk through trees, and you walk through buildings. That's not true. Cool. So let's get to Russia. And with Russia, we've got the Imperial Army. I actually heard someone complaining, and they said they wanted the Grenadier and the Reserve Musketeer removed and to bring that back to the Surf recruits, because it allows for more customization for what you want to change these to. But I don't want to do that. Dijon, the Swedish update will be in a couple months. I wanted it to be sooner, but I don't want to rush it because there's other things in the game I want to fix first. 4 surf recruits sound horrible. I know, yeah. I know. I know. I really liked what OH did. OH's idea here was my favorite, which was that I like the Dragoon, the Russian Dragoon. Starting out, let me see. Because he has a really cool uniform as well. Because he's blue. I like the blue Dragoon. Could even be a horse grenadier. That'd be kind of cool, but that's too powerful. So I liked the cavalry there. Let me see what else did you change OH if you're there? Because I remember looking at it and I was like, oh, this looks so much more fun to play. Because Russia, no one wants to touch Russia besides maybe Observation Corps. They're just kind of slow and tedious. So giving them some units that can move a little quicker is nicer. Just the Dragoon. Yeah, this just looks nicer, doesn't it? A Dragoon on top, some Russian Grenadiers, and some recruits underneath. I think that looks good to me. And then what's his skill? Morale damage received. That's quite good for a cavalry. Less morale damage received. That's nice. It's actually quite powerful. So I would just leave it at that. Make this more interesting. Casualties restored 15% is fine. Items are fine. These guys are good. And then Observation Corps. Observation Corps is quite powerful, to my understanding. OH switched one of the units out to a Fusilier instead, which we could do. I don't really play them much, so I'm not sure how everyone else feels. But they only get 3 units and 1 brigade, so I do understand they can feel a little bit slower at the start. If they get mass charged, they'd only have 2 infantry units to hold the line. So making one of them a Fusilier or something could be nice. Let me take a look at their tree, see if there's any better units beyond that. Okay, so you could make them a Grenadier, or you can make him a Fusilier. I like the Fusilier because you still have progression. You can still upgrade them. So I do like that idea, to have one slightly stronger unit. So that's what I would do. But I'd put him in second place because I like the quality to be left to right. So I'd put him there. The Grenadier hat looks silly. Yeah, it's a soft, like, cap, that forage cap that they would sometimes wear. Yeah, it does fit the playstyle better too, Alex, because they're better at shooting and, like, defending. So, yeah. So that seems good. Cover effectiveness is up. Fire damage received. Okay. And then Cossack host. So Cossacks, they've got 1 dismounted guy and 3 are mounted. The weird thing about this, in my opinion, is I would rather be 100% mounted or half mounted, half dismounted. But it's awkward to have 1 guy left behind and everyone else is charging and this guy's just sitting there. So that's weird to me. If it was 2 guys are sitting and then your cavalry is like left and right, that's better. Or if it's all cavalry and you're just mass charging, that's better. But I feel like this is off balance right now. It's a weird ratio at the moment. Adding on more cover would be nice. I don't think they need more cover, Alex, because to my understanding, it's quite powerful as it is. When you start building out the cover there. So either we go 4 cav, that's option 1, or we just play into more of the diverse Cossack units, because there are a lot of Cossack units now. So I'll add a unit and we can take a look at the tree together and see if we can make them more interesting. So look at this. We've got a lot of units to look at. But I would rather stick to the left side if possible. It could be interesting only doing 3 units. Imagine if the 3 was like like that, and you get the Slobodian, Hetmanate, and Don, so you get like all 3 hordes at the start. But that's way too powerful, isn't it? There's no progression then. You're just OP as shit. I know OH, what you said you did is you added 1 Don and then changed one of the skirmishers. Let me just take a look. Am I using your mod? I am. So you've got 1 Don, a skirmisher, a Cossack, and a Plaston, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the 4 that you've got. There's actually a lot of options, a lot of directions we could go with this. Imagine an army comp with 3 brigades, full of frontier recruits, 0 money, 0 food, 0 ammo, and everything. So you're just starving and bleeding out. But you have this huge horde of frontier, of like 4, 4, and 4 across 3 brigades, and you're just mass charging them around. I would not do that. I'm not proposing that. I'm just an idea came to my head because I looked at these guys and they look like peasants. So you could have like a peasant horde. Anyways, for the starting composition, do you guys prefer a ratio of like half skirmish and half mounted, or 100% mounted? We'll start with that, and then based around that, we'll rebuild a composition, because I don't like the current one that I have that's 3/4 mounted and then 1 guy is left behind. What is more interesting to you guys? I prefer 1 random dude to bait the enemy, but 4 cav is more interesting. I like being fully mounted. I'll put a poll. I'll let you guys vote. Yeah, strat guides, I completely agree. I thought the Russians were the most fun when you begin the first battle and everyone's fully mounted. So, yeah, I don't even want to poll for it because that's what I prefer as well. And so if we go full mounted, we're pretty much stuck with these guys, unless we want to throw in a field hussar as well. So we could do... We actually have a lot of ways to do this. We're only going to use 1 brigade. So we could do like 2 Cossacks and a Don. So you only have 3 units, but 1 is really good. And then you have your 2 regular Cossacks. That's one option. Oh, sorry, 1 sec. I'll draw a few options here. You could do a field hussar for variety. But it's weird to play the Cossack horde and you've got a field hussar, right? Yeah, I do feel like it's got to be all Cossacks. I agree. You might even be able to get away with like a 4th there. The other idea could be like Don plus Hetmanate and then a Cossack. Like that. So maybe this is option 1, where it's like the Don leads his horde. And then option 2, where it's Don and Hetmanate, and then you've got another guy to upgrade into either double downing in Don or Hetmanate, or making him Slobodian if you want. So I think these are the 2 options, but both of these should be more powerful than what we currently have. And what we currently have... I'll just compare it to what we've got currently. What we currently have is a bunch of horses, an excellent and good quality horse, a lance, some uniforms to sell off to turn into cash, gold brooch for cash, pelts for cash, and then spirit rations for charging. So you can make a bunch of money that way, and you get money rating as well. I would argue that because they're based around rating, rating scales better when you have more units. The more units you have rating, the more money you make. So having 4 units at the start means you can raid easier. So I just want to just to clarify that. Oh, I did have one idea, by the way. What do you guys think of, for a future update, having a little icon for each composition, and it says that there's a unit bias, and that a certain unit type will appear more than others. So like if you play Cossack, there could be an icon that say you'll see more Cossack units recruitable than others. Or if you play Freikorps, you'll see more Freikorps units recruitable than others. It doesn't mean you can't find any others, but it means there would be like a bias toward what the composition specializes in, for example. And maybe some compositions have no bias, like the French Lower Rhine, maybe there's no bias at all. But do you guys think that's a good idea or no? For roleplay reasons, to find kind of the right units? Or is that unnecessary? I'll note it down if you guys like that. Okay, I'll put that down. Okay. This is just my little plan. This is not official, by the way, so I wouldn't take it too seriously. But it's just a plan, an internal plan that I'm aiming for. Okay. Okay, so do you guys like the Don with the Horde, or do you like the Don Hetmanate with one guy? I'll do a little poll for it. Replace one money option with a survivability option. I can do that. I can do that. Which item would you guys like the Cossacks to start with? I can replace a gold brooch. I like the fur, the animal pelts, and the capture uniforms. I think that's cool in the alcohol. So I could probably replace the gold brooch with something else. You prefer the second option. Oh, I guess you could also suggest this would be like option 3 if you want it to be more powerful. Is to have the Don, the Hetmanate, and 2 Cossack cabs. Because people are voting for option 1. Okay, so let's do, you liked option 1, so option 3 is a variation on option 1. So now between option 3 and option 1, the only difference is upgrading one more of the Cossacks there. So I will say which Cossack build. Say option 1 or option 3. And then someone recommended giving them another lance. I could give them one more lance. I can give him a good quality lance. So just like you have an excellent and good horse, you could have an excellent and good cavalry lance. It's currently 50-50. The difference between option 1 and 3 is option 1 is 3 regular Cossacks with a Don versus a Don, Hetmanate, and 2 Cossacks. Option 3 feels too far. Yeah, I could see that. Don is very powerful on his own. I know, OH, you're saying that the Cossack cavalry isn't that good, but I do think if you have a Don kind of spearheading, the early game battles when you're fighting recruits are very exploitable. So I think you can kind of get up and running and get your upgrades out pretty quickly doing that. So let's start with 1. Let's do this. And then, yeah, they're a strong start, but later on not as good compared to others. Yeah. Replace with good lance. And you guys like the idea of replacing the brooch with a good lance, so you get the double lances, double horses? Or do you want a different item, like a saber of some sort? if we did something else, you could do like a heavy saber or a hussar saber. Or I think the double lances is fine, right? Okay, we'll leave it at that for now. And then now we get to the HRE. So the HRE has not been updated a single time since it released. So we can really dig into this if you guys want to. We've got the mustering stance, which I think is currently fine. If anything, it might be a little too powerful. However, we're making the brigade slot costs a little more expensive. And so it's not going to be quite as easy to rush the brigade slots to make mustering powerful. It's going to be a little bit harder to do that. So I think this will kind of get rebalanced on its own. It's hard to get Saxons. Yeah, that's where I want to do the unit bias system for the next update. So the unit bias can help make it so if you're playing Saxons, you get Saxons more often. We've got the 0.5% combat effectiveness per unique army. You've got a recruit, a musketeer, a lamellitz, and a dragoon. Now, compared to the other ones, I think the only thing weak here is that you've got the recruit plus lamellitz. And a dragoon is fine, and the musketeer is fine. I would say maybe either one of these should be upgraded, or we should add another unit. I don't think we need to add another unit because they have the mustering to kind of balloon their force up. So I don't think we have to do that. I think we probably could just upgrade someone. And I did make it a point to make all 4 of these guys different so that you get the 2% starting combat effectiveness, which isn't a lot, but at least there's something. Let me open up the HRE. And check it out. You could switch the recruit to the 1st regiment and give them an artillery piece in the 2nd brigade. I could do that. It might make them too easy, I'm not sure. So, yeah, they have a Christ Musketeer, a Cav, right? A Provincial Cav or what? No, they get a Dragoon, an Imperial Dragoon, and a Musketeer, and then they get a Lamellitz and a Recruit. Those are the 4 that they currently have. So we could upgrade the Dragoon into a Cuirassier, which is kind of interesting, actually. Or we could give them an additional unit, which would be a Battalion Artillery. Those are the 2 things I'm open to. So either a Cuirassier or I don't see a need for late game cav. Yeah, cavalry in the late game can be hard to justify. But I don't really have a good solution to that, unfortunately. Because artillery becomes powerful and you run out of room on the map to flank. So it's a little bit tougher to use. So either this replaces him or this gets added on. One or the other. What do you think you guys would rather have? Or it's fine how it is. But I think it probably sucks because some of these units are not very good. Without drill, your experience distribution becomes very out of proportion with HRE. Yeah. I think you just have to probably prioritize items that give you experience more often and officer skills. What is nice is in this next update, you can remove officer skills. So you could find an officer who's really good and remove one skill and try to reroll to get the veterancy gain if you want. The Saxon one already has artillery. It does. Yeah, Saxon already does have artillery and a cavalry. No, you misunderstand me. As in the player Dragoon with items should already beat any cav and do a good job. So late game cav is overkill. Okay, I know what you mean. Should they get Palatine? I don't think they should get Palatine because we already give Palatine, Bavarian, Württemberg here. We give them one of each flavor for the auxiliary corps. Cuirassier can't be justified. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It is a little overkill, right? I'll do a poll. Let's see. We'll do. You could go veteran musketeer plus lamellets. Yeah, that's true. Damn, there's a lot of options, aren't there? You could give them another recruit. I could. But the thing is you're just going to use mustering and grab another recruit. It's kind of a waste. I feel like if they start with a veteran musketeer, it's kind of like Prussia, where they start with a veteran musketeer, a dragoon, and recruits. And these guys start with a veteran musketeer, a dragoon, and 2 recruits. And that's kind of lame, you know? That they're just kind of the same in that way. Obviously, they play very differently. But as a composition, it seems maybe a little bit boring. Give them a few elite units. So mustering mechanic actually gets used. Yeah, I would rather do that. Damn, it's really tough. Maybe do a grenadier instead of a recruit. Yeah, I could replace a recruit with a grenadier. You can get away with quality across the board. Yeah. If you're already going to get the recruits from mustering, I could just replace the recruit. That to me seems... That sounds like the best idea so far. And to replace that with like a Christ Grenadier or something. Because your units are so bad early on and the recruits are horrible that this could look quite nice. That you have a Grenadier with a Dragoon and 2 basic infantry units. That doesn't look that bad to me. The other alternative is artillery. But if we did artillery, I'd probably add to it and not remove. So that's a tough one. Let me look around. Maybe just add the Grenadier to the 1st Brigade. So they have 5 starting units? You'd want to do like this? I don't know. And remove the recruit. Like that? Damn, everyone's got a different idea. Maybe 2 musketeers, a lamellets, artillery dragoon. I could even just move the Grenadier over to the other brigade. Let me see what the officers are. Depends who the officers are. Just what like buffs they're giving, so I can min-max it a little bit for the player as a start. This one gives combat effectiveness, but less command radius, which is kind of crappy for cavalry. And then a supply wagon, which is also kind of shit. So their officers are kind of crappy, but I think that was the theme. I think that's the theme here, is that the Imperial officers aren't great. And what, he gets combat effectiveness 5%. Why are there 3 HREs? Because I'm just testing out the Nation DLC and modding right now. I'm just seeing as well how much room I have if we added modding, like if a scroll bar will appear. But yeah, we're also going to add in Sweden. Command radius on Cav is crap. Grenadier should be in the 1st Brigade. Yeah, I think this looks decent, right? The 3 and 1 there. Does this look too similar to anything else? I don't think so. Oh, it is identical to the Russians, isn't it? It is almost identical. Yeah, I don't know. Gosh, yeah, that's really tough. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of ways this could go. I think the two best options are Dragoon, Grenadier, Musketeer, Lamellets. And Dragoon, Grenadier, Musketeer, Artillery. Yeah, I like them having cavalry because the Saxons get the artillery here. I mean, they get cav as well, but damn, I'm really not so sure. I don't have too much experience with this army as well, so I'm having a hard time balancing them. Imperial Hussars could replace the Dragoons. Yeah, that's true. Starting Hussars could be decent. Could do Hussars. Let me just take a look at this. If I were to do this from scratch, you could do a Hussar. I wish they weren't darkened. Is there a way I could... Yeah, there we go. You can have a Hussar with maybe some provincial cav to help. I'm just gonna spitball. I'm not proposing anything necessarily. I'm just trying to create something unique. And then you could do your Musketeer, your Lamellets, and your Recruit. So this way we've got a bit of a circus army going on. But this way you could have like one cavalry on each flank, and then your front line can kind of hold. So that's an option. The other option could be to just put an artillery in place of something here. It could be like that. That's kind of interesting. The recruit you get from mustering. I do agree that getting a recruit at the start is redundant. So let's remove that as an option. It could look like this. So you would have like, this looks like a proper army. I feel like we're going to do this for Sweden though, something like this, you know? We might have this for Sweden already. I haven't looked at the Swedish composition in a while, so I forget what we decided on for it, but... I mean, this looks like a pretty balanced army with 2 cav, 2 infantry, and 1 artillery. It's kind of like, the thing is, it's kind of just like this one, but it's bigger. And I feel like if we're going to go this direction, we should do that for Saxony instead. And so for this, I want to do something different. A veteran musketeer, a musketeer. Let me pause this one, because this one's really tough. Let me do Saxony. Because Saxony, the idea is it's an army. It's a destroyed army in exile that you have to rebuild. So it has its 2 brigades, and you have a little bit of everything to build off of. Yeah, you want space for mustering as well. That's not a bad idea. But yeah, for Saxony, you want to rebuild this. Let me take a look at the Saxon troops. Also, I don't know if you guys will hate me, but... OH, have you looked into the Tartar cavalry? Because I feel like Tartar cavalry are a little too powerful. They feel a little extreme. I remember playing with them months ago when the HRA first came out and playing against them, and they were just annihilating everything. Saxony is perfect as is. Just add 1 recruit. Let me see. I could see us just, honestly, just upgrading the artillery 1 time and the cavalry 1 time, and then leaving it at that. Which might be too much. It might be too much. But, like, give them a field gun, and maybe, like, a Tartar cavalry or a veteran chevaulegere So this way they have the veteran musketeer, the veteran chevaulegere. It'd be kind of funny to go veteran artillery. So it's 3 veterans. But that's maybe too powerful. I don't know. Because they'd all be maxed out. You'd have no progression. You'd have 0 progression among any of your units. I feel like that kind of sucks. I don't mind if one unit is maxed out, but when all of them are, it kind of sucks, you know? But yeah, Saxony is definitely at risk here of the game opening up and them just getting charged down and dying quickly. And that's kind of a problem. Max musketeers, upgrade artillery section. Yeah. I don't know, man. Damn, the HRE ended up being the hardest one today. The others, I felt like I could balance pretty easily. I really feel quite lost with this because I don't play these guys quite as much, so it's hard having a strong opinion, I feel, in this regard. Yeah, I wouldn't mind just giving them 1 extra infantry because it feels like they are, the ratio is a little bit off. That's how I feel right now. They've got a big artillery piece, a cavalry to run around with, and then actually we'll do the artillery is that, the cav is this, right? And then they just have 1 infantry in the front. And that's not enough to hold the line. I feel like look at how much nicer 1 more infantry would look when you look at the ratios like that. I feel like they just need 1 more infantry. That's my feeling on that. So why don't we give them like a recruit? You know what, as well? Isn't it annoying when you're mustering with Saxony and you keep getting the Imperial recruits when you're trying to roleplay the Saxon army? So getting a Saxon recruit isn't bad. And then you can turn them into whatever you want. It gives you a little bit of options. So how about that? Just adding in 1 little recruit that you can play with. This way when you muster, you don't get screwed by RNG quite as hard if you're trying to roleplay Saxony. And of course, that could be fixed later when we add the unit biases for army compositions, but this will just help you build that ideal army that you want at the start a little bit easier. What do you guys think of that? I think this looks nicer, right? I feel like you can hold the line a little bit better. And then, is this too similar to Austria now? What's Austria look like? Not really, right? They have a Fusilier, a Chevaulegere. Actually, it is kind of identical, isn't it? Because they both have Chevaulegere, they both have a recruit, they both have the Fusilier, and they both have the field artillery. It's in a different sequence, but I don't know if it's too similar to exactly what they've got. You know? Make one of them a grenadier. I could change something to a grenadier. I could change the veteran musketeer to a grenadier instead to make it different. Anyone else have any thoughts? Let me see what that looks like. It could be like this. Let me think about it. Hold on. I'll put a question mark because I was thinking of actually adding a grenadier to the right. So we're kind of like delaying as we go down. To the auxiliary corps, this is a little weak. This is a little weak here. I feel like we could probably upgrade something. Bavaria was not very impactful, so I don't really, from a historical perspective, I don't really want to do anything there. We could give them 1 artillery. But yeah, Bavaria didn't really participate in the war, so I don't want to invest in making them see. They were actually one of the worst armies of the war as well, so making them a veteran would probably be the least historical thing in that context, unfortunately. So we don't want to do that. I could give them just an artillery piece, just so they have something. Or if we want to keep them with a 3-unit theme, we could just upgrade a lot of the stuff here. It does take away from choice, though, for the player to go down what path they want to do. I could make it a veteran if you guys want to. I could make him a veteran. It does feel wrong to be like... Yeah, it does feel wrong to make the worst unit the best unit. There's something that does feel off about that, even if it's a convenient solution. Yeah, I really don't know. It's tough because I don't know what to do for Saxony. I don't really know what to do for the Christ contingent, and I don't know what to do for these guys. It's very difficult, isn't it? Everyone else we flew through. We've probably spent half today's stream just on the HRE at this point, and everyone else was much easier to do. I'm not sure. Let me think. An extra Palatine. I could just give them a provincial cavalry unit. Just so you have some mobility. I actually don't like right now that they have no mobility whatsoever. So if they just got a cav unit, that could look nice. The 3-unit theme is great, though. Yeah, literally anything I say, any suggestion I come up with, it sucks. If I say let's do, there's no coherency with any of these. It's such a shame that there's like no, like with everything else, it was like, oh, this is a great idea. These dragoons work perfect, done. And then every time we add a damn unit or remove a unit, it's like, well, no, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. It's really, really tough. So probably just upgrade one of these units, right? Is that what we're leaning on? I think that's the most obvious solution here. Just upgrade one of these units. Make it a veteran musketeer, and then leave the others to be upgraded left or right. I could even add a Feldjäger, but we like the 3-unit theme for them, right? Because they're supposed to be like a little contingent, like an auxiliary force. So I could make them veterans, even if it's not historical. You know, there's not much in the game that is fully historical anyways, you know? So I think it's okay. Can't you buff them with better starting items or resources? I could. Their items are already decent, though. Their doctrine's decent. I buffed it in the last update. And the units are decent here, too. So that's fine. So we really just have to nail down these two. For Saxony, we don't mind having 4 units. And we were thinking of giving them a grenadier, because you don't have a grenadier here, and you don't have grenadiers there, right? So I think we could do a Saxon grenadier. And then they have a really good unit, a crappier unit, an artillery, and a cavalry, so it's nice and balanced. Either that, or we just give them double musketeers or something. Give Christ a grenadier. Yeah, I don't know. Give Saxony a grenadier instead of musketeers. Right? I think more people prefer Saxony getting the grenadier, it seems. And I think that's true because the Christ contingent is more about spam, right? Like it's more about being a horde. And Saxony is more quality oriented. So I think a grenadier feels a bit better. Or a veteran musketeer. Either of those work for me. But if no one has a grenadier, then it's nice to fill that niche to give them one. So I can see why people lean on that. And I also see the benefit of having the Saxon recruit because you often end up getting HRE recruits. And people don't like that. So I think this helps solve the issue of not getting enough Saxon recruits. And then this helps solve the lack of grenadiers. And then we can do whatever the fuck we want with the Kreis. Let's start with a blank slate and build it out however we want. Let me merge my layers down. Okay. And if we were to build a random collection of Imperial units, we could do... I feel like a Lamolitz is a good call. 6 HRE recruits for Kreis, yeah. With 6 more on the way with mustering. You need space for mustering? Yeah. So we probably want to go with 4 units, right? They can get a Lamolitz. We could give them a veteran musketeer. What if you give them 4 brigades with 1 unit? Yeah. Hi, Kelly. Uh-huh. Kelly's checking in. Yeah, Lamolitz is a guarantee. Veteran Kreis is good because we're not using them. We're not using veterans for anyone else, really, besides this guy, Bavarian. I don't want to add the Jaeger because I want them to all be Kreis and Imperial. So, like, this is what we can choose from for the theme of the Kreis contingent. And either we shouldn't give them artillery or don't give them cavalry because Saxony gets both. And I think because we have breastplates and they're more knightly, we probably don't want to give them artillery. So this is what we're looking at here. Can't give them a dragoon since Saxony has them. Yeah. Honestly, guys, I would give them a goddamn cuirassier because it looks like they have the breastplate. They're the Holy Roman Empire. They have like a medieval theme going for them. I think it's no other composition in the entire game gets a cuirassier at the start. So it's completely 100% unique. And I don't plan on giving cuirassiers to Sweden in their starting comp. So it's something that you could start the game with that might be overpowered. But if it's overpowered, then let's give them shitty units. So that's what I want to do. Because it's just unique, you know? I think that's fun. So let's give them a cuirassier. And if we have to make the other units really weak to compensate, like by giving them a Lamolitz and a musketeer and calling it a day, then we just do that. There. Now you only have 3 units. You have a crappy Lamolitz and a musketeer and a big heavy cav. And then you've got to muster and fill out your ranks. We could do that. Because no one else... Look, you get the big breastplate. And then you can get the morale or casualty restoration on it. So you can start with your Imperial Knights and then do that. Even the French Royal Cav don't start with the... Look, they have the Gentleman Cav. They don't even get the breastplate. So at least it's unique. And then... What are we thinking with the cuirassier? A Lamolitz and a musketeer to support it? And increase their starting money? The cuirassier is going to be really strong. And then the 2 infantry units really, really suck. What do you need to muster? Is there anything that you need to do mustering with? Like food or money? money for gambling. How do you gamble with money though? You don't gamble with money. Like it's not like a casino you go in. You mainly spend food on mustering. It's mainly a food thing. You go into debt. Yeah, you do go into debt. Does mustering cost money? I didn't know that. Let me see. How have you forgotten how it works? Yeah, I did forget how it works. Let me just check. Let me reread. It's been a while, guys. I've been working on like sequel ideas for a bit, so I'm just coming back now. Let's see. So this is... What money am I losing, though? I don't understand that. I'm losing money... Oh, $5 spent per regiment per day. Got it. Okay, give them some more money to gamble, yeah. So what, are we thinking like 450 to start? And then they should probably get another unit. This looks a little weak in my opinion. They have I give them a Lamelitz, a Musketeer, and then either a recruit or another Lamelitz or another Musketeer. We don't want to give them duplicates because the whole theme is that they get combat effectiveness per unique unit. But this looks a little bit off, it feels, you know? We decided recruits aren't necessary. Yeah, I agree. Let me check what they currently use for their composition. Yeah, mustering might need... We could do a little balance pass on mustering. But yeah, currently they get a recruit, a dragoon, musketeer, and a Lamelitz. You muster immediately and get the 4th unit. If you're a new player, maybe you don't do that, though. If you're a new player, maybe you go into a battle and just get your ass kicked. Ugh. But yeah, I don't know. Like, Britain only gets 3 units as well, right? So I'm not opposed to it. But they're supposed to get a big horde, as you can see from the image. So I would prefer them getting 4 units to represent the horde. We could just give them a starting recruit. I know it's a little redundant, but it at least fills them out in a way that I originally wanted, where they get the horde. So really, all we would be doing is just upgrading the dragoon to a cuirassier. Like, maybe this looks fine. I'd probably put the recruits in the other thing, but I like that the knights that the knights are with the peasants. I think this is fine, right? Because it ends up just being that we're going to make the dragoons a little bit better, and then we don't need to give them the extra money necessarily because they already start with the 1 recruit. So I think this is fine. It's just when you compare it to other nations, right? Like a grenadier, a cavalry, a decent fusilier, and double recruits versus a cuirassier, a crappy musketeer, and a crappy Lamelitz. And it's like, well, that's kind of rough. I get that the meta game would be to like very quickly muster and then fix that problem, but not every player is going to metagame on the very first composition. I can increase the resources up to 400 though, if you want, or 350 even. Let's do 350. There. And then we'll call it a day on them. And then with the Saxons, we're just giving them an extra recruit and upgrading to a grenadier. That seems good to me. I mean, who else gets 400 in the game? Does anyone else start with 400? No, they would be the richest people. They'd even be richer than the British. Only the Hessian, only the subsidy troops get 400. So 350 is fine. And then these guys just get a little upgrade with the veterans, so that seems good too. Let me look for any questions we might have. We have a small question there, but I agree with this change. This is good. I have a small question here about the subsidy troops and their item slot cost being 70% off. My only issue with this is we're going to make the item cost go up, the item slot cost a little bit more expensive. So this is going to be more valuable. And then we were also thinking of maybe increasing the subsidy again a little bit up because the brigades are going to be more expensive. So I feel like this could come down. Especially because they got all these upgrades. We really made their composition look way better. So I feel like this could be plus 60% instead, or 65%. You know what I did, though? When I was designing it, I was looking of what the actual pricing is. So, for example, when I go in here, it's $50 and 50 minus 60% is 20. If you do 50 minus 50%, it's 25, so that doesn't seem bad. What is it currently? 70%. If it's 50 minus 70%, it costs 15 for the first slot. I think 50% off sounds fine. 50% off your item slots is perfectly fine, because this would only cost 25 instead of 50. And this is probably going to go up to 60, so this would only be 30. Yeah, Granby needs to decide on one trait or the other. He has infantry accuracy and cavalry accuracy. But you could pay to remove one of these early on. So yeah, I would make this 50% instead. And then the reservist cost being 50%, people don't like when bonuses are the same or lower than what the negative number says, just psychologically. So the reservist cost needs to be brought down a little bit, just from a psychology standpoint. Like when people see that a negative number look higher or equal to the positive number, they just immediately click off because they don't want to deal with that. So I need to look at what the regular cost is currently to make sure it looks like a decent number. I just want to make sure the number doesn't look weird. That's all. So if I go here, manpower costs 60. So 60 minus, or increased, 60 increased by 40% is 84. 60 increased by 50% is 90. 60 increased by 35% is 81. 60 increased by 45% is 87. So there's not really a good number. I can just make this 35% instead. We'll just do that. Isn't Granby a cavalry general? Yeah, he is, but he's got a bunch of starting infantry. I could change meticulous out to just be, like, this is good, cavalry accuracy. This could just be something that could apply to everybody. So this way you can specialize them into cavalry a little bit easier. Let me take a look at the traits. There might be like a new trait that we added recently that's not being used. I don't think we're using morale damage received. We're not using this one. We're not using charge damage, but that's not good for the infantry that you have. We're not using cover effectiveness, but that's not good for the cavalry that you have. We don't have this, but that's not good for the cavalry. Reload speed. It's called efficient. I thought we were already using efficient though. Let me check. How are we not using efficient? Okay, let's see here. Yeah, we're not using... Okay, sorry, I just had to check. We're not using efficient for reload speed. We're not using the morale damage one. We're not using... The morale plus 15% could be cool. Are we not using this one anymore? A morale buff for these guys could be nice. To remove the... Because you already have so much accuracy, right? You already get 55 plus 70 now. So he doesn't really need the extra 10%. It could just be a morale buff. Because you only have so few units. So if they hold the line better, that might be better. So that could be good. Let me see if there's anything better. You could start them with fire by rank. But he's a cavalry general, so you don't want to do that. I would probably do confident and replace meticulous. Probably remove that, so this can be now yellow. And take the morale buff. There. So now he will have a cavalry buff and a morale buff, so he can be more specialized toward cavalry, but he's not useless for your infantry at the start. Okay. If we're buffing commanders, can we improve the HRE? Yeah, I mean, the HRE commanders are a little rough. I think that was intentional, though, because the HRE had really bad officers, and I don't want to be saddled down by history. But I like that you have to kind of work on them. Also, the Hanoverian cavalry general has a trait at level 0. Let me check. Ah, okay. You're right. Let me see if there's anything we want to do with the HRE officers. Noble, I like this one. Morale and command radius. That's good. I like that he's a noble because I think he's like a king, or not a king, but like a duke or someone really high up in Saxony. So yeah, he's not the king. Fire damage received, 10% less. That's not bad. That's fine. What's he get? Veterancy gain is great. Flanking damage is also good. These are where the officers are really rough. Combat effectiveness 5%, but less command radius. That's fine. I would probably replace this one. The supply wagon's not bad because they do burn through ammo quickly because they have huge numbers. So really it's just Hohenzollern, whose prudent trait kind of sucks for him. Oh, you know why I gave it to him though? Look, it's combat effectiveness 5%, and then national, or the doctrine he gets is the combat effectiveness buff. So I think I will leave it at that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it. I am going to leave it. For the brigade costs, I want to figure out what we're doing with that, because I want to increase the brigade costs and the unit upgrade, or the upgrade slot costs. So the current division costs are 300 for your first brigade, then 600, then 1200, then 2400. If I did these times 2, what would it be? It doesn't tell me. Okay. You could go 6 if you times 2, multiplied it by 2, it'd be 600. 1200, 2400, and then 4800, which is a little bit expensive. 4800 is too high. OH, you're recommending 500, 1000, 2000, 4000. I think this looks nice. I would do that. Because I think by the end game you have so much cash. And this also means that the final brigade slot is sort of hard to get. So yeah, I would do that. Yeah, we're gonna update France and Britain after this. And then I want to do the item slot costs, which are currently 50, 100, 150. I think I wouldn't mind. Is 4,000 too high, do you guys think, for the brigade slots? We could, let me check. We could go like, we could bring it down a little bit. We could bring it down a little bit. What did it used to be? It used to be that you'd have to save up 2,400. Maybe for the Atri, don't sounded like a lot, but it isn't. Okay, we'll try it out. We have a whole week to test it on beta. We have a week to test it out, so if we don't like it, we'll change it. For the item slots, I want to change this as well because I don't like that you can play ultra tall so easily. But I don't want to go quite that high with this. Like, I could see increasing all of these numbers by like 10%. I'm going to use ChatGPT to do the math, and it'll give us a few options. Here. So we could either go 55 for the first upgrade slot. Sounds weird. 60 doesn't sound bad. 60 to 120 to 180 to 240. This actually looks good. It currently is 50, 100, 150, goes up to 400. This would start at 60, 120, and go up to 480. So that doesn't look bad. This is decimals, so we don't want this. 65 also doesn't look too bad. 70 sounds really rough, and 75 sounds even rougher. I don't like these. I like this one the most. I like a 20% increase in the item slot costs because I think it's just a little too easy to make like super marines. And we buffed all the starting comps, so I know we're making the game tougher by making things more expensive, but you're also starting a little more powerful. Oh, sorry. So you've got a slightly higher amount of power to start the game with, but it takes a little longer to get going. And I think that's better than starting really weak and feeble and just getting destroyed on the first battle, but then being able to snowball and the game becomes too easy. You don't really want that. You kind of want the game to start easy and get hard, and not the opposite. Do we get a little teeny bit more items? What do you mean, CCN? Like a bigger item drops from battles? Or item types, you mean? I'm not sure what you mean. Could you clarify what you mean? Like you want more items that are loot dropped? But yeah, I think the 20% increase is good here. So you get a less steep power increase for the player. I like that. Yeah. Does the AI also get a bit of a power increase debuff? I don't know. Maybe they should, Eli, but I might save it for the next update and not this one because it might be a little hard to fit all that in this update. But yeah, what we've thought about, what OH and I have talked about, is making the AI armies just a little bit smaller so that your army is going to grow a little bit slower, but the AI is not going to get so big so the battles aren't too tiring as well. And then we could give the player like one more piece of loot per battle, potentially. So, yeah. I mean, I have a whole week to do this update, so I might be able to actually race ahead and implement more than I thought I was able to. For the Act 3 HQ, I don't think they should field 6 brigades anymore. I'm going to remove that because I think I would rather the AI fight harder and fight better than fight with just giant horde numbers. And yeah. So I'm going to remove the 6 brigades. But at the same time, it's going to be harder for the player to reach 5 brigades. So we're going to push the AI down a little bit, and then we're going to push the player down a little bit at the same time. So instead of you reaching 5 brigades with like tons of cash and lots of reserve units, and the AI trying to one-up you at 6 brigades, we're going to push you down so you're just barely reaching that 5 brigades with little floating cash, and then the AI is at your level. And then that is a more like even endgame fight. I also was thinking of removing patrol armies from Act 3. Just no patrols. So this way you can use Act 3 to go fight the encamped armies, raid some villages, gather some supplies, and get ready and just fight the HQs when you're ready. But yeah, there's a lot of things I want to do. I just don't know I want to take it one step at a time and not implement too much all at once. But yeah, it does sound extreme removing patrols from Act 3, but I think Act 3 kind of sucks right now. Like, do you guys like to stay in Act 3 and fight lots of battles there? For me, like, I kind of wish the playthrough would wrap up quicker. I think the game drags just a little bit. I would rather have more diverse playthroughs that are repeated rather than one playthrough that overstays its welcome a little too long. But no, Man of the Cross, I completely agree. I don't want to overdo it. So I like the brigade and item slot cost increases. I like the composition changes. And then I just want to stop with that there. How do you get money from Act 3 if you remove patrols? I think what you would do is you would fight the encamped armies and you would raid villages. But I don't want to do that just yet. I'm going to save that for the next update because the other thing I want to do is probably reform Act 3 to I want to do a thing where we do a new end game system for my early May update. And so that would be like maybe 3 types of end games that you can get, and you don't have to fight patrols. It's all about like the encamped armies. So the encamped armies are moving around, burning down villages, and you have to stop them, or they're entrenched around villages and you have to pick them off, or there's like HQ armies that are rallying and you've got to try to like fend them off as they come toward you or something like that. But I think the end game should probably be changed because Acts 1 and 2 are fine, but I don't want to spend Act 3 doing the same things I did in Act 1 and 2. So, yeah. But that's for another update. I don't want to overdo it. For now, the update theme for the early April one, which for this Friday, is the AI personalities. We did that. Removable officer traits. That's in. We did that. We just changed all the starting army comps, so we did that. And then I said to make things more expensive, and we just did that. So I pretty much fulfilled everything I want to do for update 1, and now we have a week to test it on beta. But yeah, I think Act 3 should have fewer battles, but more meaningful ones. Whereas Act 1 should have lots of battles, but less meaningful. Like, I like in Act 1 fighting all the little skirmish battles, but by Act 3, I don't want a lot of battles. I just want a couple that mean a lot more, that are more important. Like, the 2 HQ battles are fun in Act 3, but I don't like really fighting a lot of the other ones, so I want to kind of streamline it a little bit. What did you do with my Grenzer composition? I think I improved it. I think I reduced the light infantry range a little bit because it's a little too exploitable, as you know. And then I upgraded one of your units to a Grenzer Grenadier. So it's actually a little... You've got a slightly easier start, but you can't scale quite as overpowered just by about 5%. Which I think is good, because the most annoying part of playing with the border troops is the first few battles on the hardest difficulty, where you just get mass charged and you have nothing to defend yourself with. But the late game, you just become too overpowered. So I'm just trying to bring them a little closer to the middle in terms of balance. Less battles means less XP. Is it possible to increase the XP gain? I agree, Strat Guides. That's why I want to do this over the course of 3 separate updates and not do this all at once and break the game. So if we're going to reduce the amount of battles and make them more meaningful, I will need to increase the amount of loot and XP gain. But I don't want to rush that into this week's update because I'll risk breaking the balance. I'm going to hold off. And then over the course of the next 2 updates, we're going to work on that repacing to the game and take it nice and slow, do lots of testing, make sure it's perfect. And then I would say this early June update will really be probably the peak of the MOC updates. And then I don't know if I'm going to stop doing major updates after that point. We'll have to see. But my plan, at least, I'm going to do minor updates for the rest of this year. So that's guaranteed, even if this update ends up going poorly for whatever reason. But in terms of major updates, June might be the last major one, but I kind of want to leave the game in a state where you have a customizable general system, so you can actually rename and outfit and give abilities to your player general character. You have a weather system, so it can snow in battles or rain, making the battles more dynamic. We have the AI personalities, which make the battles even more dynamic. You can remove officer traits, which is a little bit of quality of life, along with a couple other quality of life improvements I want to make in updates 2 and 3. I want to make things more expensive and slow down the growth for the player a little bit, because I think the player becomes too powerful, and I think there's lots of meaningless battles that you have to grind through, so I'd rather fewer but more meaningful battles over the course of these 3 updates. I want to add a new endgame system, so Act 3 is different each time you play and has a little randomness and is more interesting. Kind of like if you play a roguelike game, you get a different boss at the end each time. So that's kind of what I want to do there. I would add like a unit bias system, so if you're playing Cossacks, you get to recruit more Cossack units. I want to change the amount of patrols in Act 3 so you're not facing a patrol spam. And I think that's like everything I want to do to leave the game in a good state for June. And then give it a little break, let the game sit for a little bit. These are a lot of big updates. I don't want to overdo it. It's as much as it's fun to add things to a game, it's also not fun when you play a game a lot and then you go away for 2 months and you come back and the whole game is so wildly different, it's unrecognizable. So I don't want to do that. I want to fix the issues that I have with the game and then kind of leave it for a little bit, and then we can chip away at stuff throughout the end of the year and then see where we're at. So that's kind of the plan for me. But yeah, I'm going to stop the stream here probably because I got to make a map. Let me just take some notes. I've got to do a map that I'm working on. And then I've got to change the army comps. I've got to change some prices. Sorry, I'm just taking notes. And a few other things. Okay, so map time. I could I could mute and you could just watch me build the map, but that's probably going to be boring. So I could leave the stream running while I'm making a map, but I don't think that's going to be very interesting to you guys. So I think we'll wrap up here. And yeah. American Revolution DLC for the 250th. I wanted to do that, but I spoke with the developers, and I don't think they're interested in doing that because it'd be very ambitious. And I think, yeah, honestly, I just couldn't convince anyone to be into that. I was the only one who was excited about it, and they just weren't really into that. So for now, we're sticking with Sweden. And if the Swedish DLC does well, maybe I can convince them to do American Revolution at some point. I don't know. But yeah. Okay, I'll head out. I'll do another stream later on. But yeah, I'm going to work on implementing these changes. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for the feedback.